What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now going to take us into Oxford, Ohio. We are back in MACtion territory. The Miami, Ohio Redhawks were this close to winning in the Mid-American Conference Championship last year, hoping to avenge their loss and get back on top of MACtion in 2025. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. And thank you so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, then do what it says below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload during prediction season, especially not one of your favorite team. I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of this industry, and if you would like to see all of the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, then please give me a follow. It's at TailgateNate29 on Twitter and Instagram, and please feel free to even email me and reach out at tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, me and the channel, in literally whatever way that you already do it. Now, with all of that said and done and out of the way, I give you the Miami, Ohio Redhawks for 2025 predictions, led by this man over here in Chuck Martin. Still the head coach of this program, has taken this program to some really, really good heights, has won Mid-American Conference championships, and they got slaughtered by the Ohio Bobcats at Ford Field in the Mid-American Conference Championship last year. And even though this is a team that is decimated from top to bottom, they use the portal really well, they are very well coached, and their historic pedigree within the Mid-American Conference can lead them back to another conference championship game this upcoming season. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview in which the offense is here on the left and the defense is here on the right. At the end of the video, we are going to take a deep dive into the Red Hawk football schedule. I will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Red Hawks here in 2025. Before we do get started, you'll look right down here. Returning production numbers are according to ESPN. Look back at those in a second. And recruiting and transfer portal ranks according to 24/7 Sports. They're both for the class of 2025. You want to look at something about this returning production number. Yeah, overall it's at 33%. And while they have some solid pieces returning defensively, a lot of their stars are gone. 15%. 15%. That is an absurdly low number. In fact, I think it's the lowest returning production number as far as offensive production goes in 2025. And it's one of the lowest numbers I have seen ever since returning production numbers have been a thing and since I've started to follow them. That is an obscenely low number, and it means they're going to need to replace pretty much everyone offensively. This offense is going to feature an entirely new squad. And let's start out with the quarterback position. You lose a Miami legend when Brett Gabbert is now with the NFL's Miami Dolphins. Man, what a career he had for this Red Hawk program. Was just the primary starter year in and year out from 2019 all the way in here to 2024. Despite 2020 and 2022 being what they were, he was one of the better quarterbacks in program history. Last year set a high in passing yards with 2,921 yards, 21 touchdowns, and yes, did have a career high in picks with 11 of them, but was also, again, just a pretty prolific passer, was overall a really, really good guy, and is beloved throughout this program. You got to replace a legend. However, Daquan Finn is back in MACtion after it not working out at the Power 4 level at Baylor after transferring from Toledo. He is going to transfer in here to Miami to play for his second MAC team and do what he couldn't do at Baylor last year, which he's probably obviously going to win the starting job. I think he's the most talented guy in this room by far, even though Henry Husson is back there. No, look at what Daquan Finn did for the Toledo Rockets in 2023. This is Finn's final season of collegiate eligibility, too, by the way. 2,657 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, as well as 563 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. And you could even argue that 2022, in some ways, was by far his best season. That passing total kept going up and up. That rushing, those rushing numbers took a little bit of a dip 2023, but he was still very, very prolific in 21 and 2022. I think he's going to be great. I think he's really, really good for this Chuck Martin system. Gabbert was not a guy that got outside of the pocket and ran a lot, so it is a little bit of a different style quarterback, but I like the way that DeQuan Finn fits in. I like the way that DeQuan Finn fits in. That is a tongue twister. Try to say that 5 times fast. I think DeQuan Finn is going to be a really good quarterback here with this team, and I think he has a lot of pretty solid talent around him. Now, even though this is a running back room that does lose Keon Mosey, he was your leading rusher a season ago with 1,098 yards, did have 4 touchdowns. You still do have a really solid returning piece. Kenny Tracy is going to be coming back to this team, and while not a big piece in this team last year, you look at what Kenny Tracy has done during his career here with this Red Hawk program. There have been some moments and some years where Kenny Tracy has been a really solid back. You go back to 2023, 250 yards, a pair of touchdowns, and had 5.4 yards per rush that year, and even had 126 yards in the touchdown on 10 catches out of the backfield receiving as well. So he's a nice two-way back. Jordan Brunson is going to be coming back. Those will be your new feature guys in the running back room this season, with Kenny Tracy set to play the lead this year. As far as the wide receiver room goes, yes, 2 huge wide receiver pieces are going to be portal bound for this team this season. Again, just some absolutely, absolutely massive pieces that are going to be leaving this team. I got to find where they are in my notes. Here they are. Reggie Virgil. Just an absolute superior talent. He is now going over with the loaded portal class at Texas Tech, 816 yards and 9 touchdowns for him last year. You also do lose Javon Tracy. He's going to go try to have the same level of production, around 816 yards, and I think 7 touchdowns. Yes, 7 touchdowns a season ago. He is now with the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. However, you do get some really solid portal pieces transferring into the wide receiver room. Deion Colsey, Darian Williams, Keith Reynolds, Brady Simmons, and Cordell Russell are all names that enter through the transfer portal to pair along with Cam Perry, who had 166 yards of production with the Red Hawks last season. He is a former transfer of Indiana, but is returning to this team from last season. There is a ton of good talent here. I think Deion Colsey is really, really talented. I think Keith Reynolds coming over from Washington is really, really talented. By the way, Colsey coming over from Notre Dame. Darian Williamson is coming over from Florida State. There's a lot of guys coming from major programs that are going to enter this wide receiver room this year. And what's more, your tight end room does see some transfers in here as well. It is portal built. Grant Leaper is going to be transferring over from Iowa. Well, you look at the track record with Iowa tight ends, they usually turn out pretty well. Brody Kosin is transferring in as well. You do have an experience option in Brian Shane coming in, and again, Mitch Bolden, another transfer that does enter. So mainly portal built. I do like Brian Shane. I think if he sees the field, can see some solid production, but overall, the lead pieces in the tight end room will be portal built. On the offensive line, this is where some of the returning production does help, because you do get quite a bit of returning starting production on this offensive line, as by my count, only 2 or so starting roles are going to need filled on the offensive line. Transfers are going to fill in on the right side with Peyton Kirkland and Austin Uke, both guys that transfer in. The center, big point of emphasis, though, is Chris Manu is a redshirt freshman. He's probably going to be that center for you this year, and that's going to be a really, really big role for the very, very young player. So we'll see how well he is going to play this year. The center position as a whole, probably not going to prove to be too deep, and even if it is, it's going to be pretty young this year. By the way, your offensive coordinator is Pat Welsh. So when I take a look at this offense, yeah, you got to fill in pretty much every shoe in the book. All of your returning production from most of your big pieces from last season are off and gone. Even names that I did not mention that had some really solid production for this team last year. But you take a look at the pedigree. You take a look at the talent they have, led by DeQuan Finn at quarterback. I like what they did in the wide receiver room and the transfer portal. I think they got some good pieces at tight end. As far as the offensive line goes, I still think they have some solid pieces to help this running attack that had 4.6 yards per carry last year. Yes, you can improve in the sack department. You allowed almost 30 of them last year. Pass protection can get better, but I have no reason to believe that the talent that is present on this team offensively this upcoming season is not going to perform and maybe not do as well as it has done in the past, but I think it's still going to fare out pretty darn well for this Red Hawk program. Defensively, yes, 51% of your returning or 51% of your production does come back. Bill Brechin as your DC. It's one of the best defense the Mid-American Conference has seen over the past couple of seasons. It too, like the offense of Brett Gabbert, has some generational pieces to replace as far as players in this Miami program go. They come in the linebacking room, but let's start in your defensive front. Brian Ugwu and Corey Suttle, 2 sack leaders for this team last year. Ugwu 7.5 sacks and Suttle 5.5 sacks a season ago. Both of those guys are off and gone. They leave the D line. So you do get an edge rusher linebacker combo type player in Adam Trick, who had 4.5 sacks last year. He is going to be coming back. He will be that sort of edge rusher player for you this season. Other players in the unit, though, are going to need to take some a step in the right direction. You have Nasir Washington coming back as a really experienced piece. I like that at the D tackle position. Cam Wilson on the opposite edge is a transfer from Cincinnati that had a pair of sacks last year, had a pair of sacks in 2023, is also a former Louisville Cardinal. I like that. A lot out of the transfer portal by Joby is a Kansas and former Michigan State transfer that's going to be coming in to be a backup edge rusher for you. I like that a lot. It's just up to some of these returners to take steps in the right direction and fill in the gaps. Here are your generational players, though. Your tight end duo, Matt Salopek, 122 tackles, a sack, 3 interceptions, and recovered a fumble last year. And Ty Wise, 89 tackles, 5 sacks last year, 2 interceptions, forced a fumble, and recovered a fumble. 2 excellent linebackers, and it's what helped made this defense just unbelievably good over the past couple of seasons, were that linebacking duo. And now Salopek and Wise are both going to be off to bigger and better things. I believe both of them are going to be seeing some NFL time potentially. I know at least Matt Salopek potentially is. I think they're both trying to get on to some NFL rosters, but both no longer with the program. There is still a bulk of talent prevalent. Again, you could include Adam Trick in this room if you would like, but Corbin Hondrew, Malcolm McCain, Oscar McWood, there still are a lot of pieces that had really good production for you last year that are going to be coming back and fitting in. I like Oscar McWood a lot. I like Malcolm McCain a lot, and even some of the depth back there I feel pretty confident in as well. Rayon Strader, you want to talk about some more generational pieces that leave. He is a really, really, really good corner. 17 passes defended. Not making that number up. I got it right in front of me. 17 passes defended with the Redhawks last year to go along with 2 interceptions, as well as being a top 10 tackler. Yeah, he's going to be one of the better corners. Or at the very least, he'll be a depth piece, but was really, really good here at Miami. He now joins the defensive backfield with Hugh Freeze and Auburn. However, Silas Walters is still a very big returning piece. 95 tackles. That was second on the defense last year with 12 passes defended. Well, after hearing that 17, you now know that that was only second on the team and did recover a team high 2 fumbles last year. Tied that with Brian Ugwu, who of course is gone. So Silas Walters being a return is massive for this defensive backfield. And again, it still is very talented. Luke Evans returns to play corner. Eli Blakely is a very experienced safety that's going to pair with Silas Walters. You do have Coy Beasley transferring in from Purdue to play the other corner for you. And even then, you have some really good solid depth, albeit the depth is pretty young in this secondary. As well, as far as your kicking room goes, you got one guy that does it all, and I will butcher his name, and I apologize for it in advance, but Dom Zioban. I know I butchered that name both times I said it, so I apologize, but he both punts and kicks for this team, so he is back. He's returning to do that there as well. Talent, in my opinion, is not necessarily the biggest thing to look at with this Red Hawk team. I think they have their quarterback that they want. I think DeQuan Finn showed that he can be very productive at the MAC level. I think he'll do it again here at Miami. But you just have so many really, really good, talented pieces to try to fill in and replace. However, if I were to trust any program in the MAC with trying to replace as much talent as Miami is, I would absolutely trust this program. They have the pedigree, they have the culture, they have the coaching, and albeit the talent that's gone, I still think they got a good squad built this year. Now, when you take a look over here at the schedule, MAC play is going to be very interesting this season. I'll dive into why here in a second, but let's first look right down below me at some numbers courtesy of FanDuel. They are right down there, and they just do provide some context to how good the odds makers think Miami of Ohio is going to be this year. They are current as of recording this video. And of course, we look at playoff odds, not national championship odds, because it makes a lot more sense, being that there's probably only one group of 5 spot open. We know it's going to take a lot for a group of 5 teams to go win the national championship. Hey, plus 550 odds to win the conference. That is one of the higher numbers that you are going to find in the Mid-American overall. It sits them at 4th behind Toledo, Ohio, and Buffalo. Yes, folks, the Bulls are going to be quite the squad to be built like this year. 3,500 odds to get into the college football playoff. Not as short as some, but not as long as the majority of the pack. And being one of the favorites in the Mid-American Conference, everything goes right. They string together some non-conference wins like they see in their first 3 games right here, and they run through Mid-American Conference play, get that championship. There is a world where they can beat everyone out. But again, that's going to be really tough to do when you have to go on the road and play 2 Big Ten programs. You have to go on the road and play Wisconsin, and then you go on the road and play the Rutgers Scarlet Knights as well. And these are 2 teams that I just don't really think are going to lose to this Miami team, especially early on in the season. When you have a lot of talent that you are trying to fill in for, when you have a lot of talent you are trying to replace, it's going to be really hard to go on the road and beat some of these power programs. It's going to be really, really hard. I think they lose on the road against Wisconsin. It's also just a year that Luke Fickell has got to get it figured out with this Badger program, hoping to fix some of the quarterback issues with Billy Edwards and some of the other things going on there as well. He really, really needs this season, does Luke Fickell, to go right for him in Madison. And then Rutgers as well. Ethan Kaliakmanis took some nice steps at the quarterback position last year after really, really struggling during his time with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And this overall is a Rutgers team that I think is going to prove to be pretty solid this year. They don't have some of the star power like Kyle Monangai has gone at running back, but I think they got a solid enough bunch here to be competitive, at least in non-con. And I think going on the road again will be a hassle for Miami. And not even that, you're like, okay, finally, we get a bye week, we get to settle down. Then you have to go play one of the better group of 5 teams that are going to be in the country as well. And even though UNLV, much like Miami, also gets gutted, Dan Mullen is coming in to be that head coach and was a really good head coach at the SEC level. There were just some other things that went on there with that program that allowed him, or I should say not allowed him, but led to him getting let go. This is a UNLV team that I think is going to be very well coached by Dan Mullen. I think they did very well for themselves in the transfer portal. I think they got a lot of good talent, and I think they're going to come on the road here and get a big time win. I do think UNLV, again, is not replacing as much as Miami, especially offensively, even though both teams are replacing a lot of production and a lot of talent from last year. I think I like UNLV a little bit more than Miami overall as a team this year, and I think UNLV comes on the road and gets that win. Miami should be able to pick up the win against Lindenwood in that 5th week of the season. So usually you've seen this with Miami, though. They always have a tough non-conference stretch like last year. I'm going to have it right in front of me because I don't want to forget it. They went on the road to play Northwestern. They had Cincinnati at home, and then they went on the road to play Notre Dame before they got UMass at home in week 5. So you see it again evident right there. Really, really tough starts to the season are not new for this Miami program. They're going to get another one right here. I think they start out 1-4, or not 1-4, 1-3 for yet another season. Actually, even going back to 2023, though, Miami, Ohio was able to go on the road and get the win against Cincinnati. And again, what was a very, very good year where they did win the Mid-American Conference Championship. That's what they're going to hope to get back to this season. Well, MAC play does not start off pretty easy here for you. You have to go on the road and play Northern Illinois, and it's a Northern Illinois team I think is going to tame. I don't know what the twang was for, but this is a Northern Illinois team that I do think is going to end up being a pretty solid bunch this year. I like the Huskies quite a bit this season, not as much as some other teams in the Mid-American Conference, I will admit that. But I do think they still have some pretty good pieces that can give Miami quite the runs here. However, You are losing some really talented pieces through the transfer portal. I believe there's going to be a new quarterback in town. You're going to have some new pieces in the running back position. The defense is trying to portal in some pieces. I think if Northern Illinois was returning a couple more pieces from what they had last year, I'd probably pick them to win this game because I do think they're very well coached by Thomas Hammock. Again, they just pulled off one of the biggest upsets ever in college football history, and what in their biggest upset in program history last year when they went on the road to beat Notre Dame. This Northern Illinois team has got some heart, soul, and fight. I think it's going to be I think Miami's going to be just a little bit too much, and I'm very, very interested and very doubtful on how Northern Illinois is going to be able to slow down DeQuan Finn. That is the biggest piece for me, and it's why I think Miami, Ohio wins the game. Akron, man, this really is a year that Akron needs as well for their own head coach in Joe Moorhead. They really need to see some good improvement this year. Hey, 4-8 last year was good, solid improvement, and Akron could see it again this year. It is Maction. Anything can happen. I think Miami can go on the road and lose this game, absolutely. Do I see it as likely? No, not particularly. Miami's always been a more talented team than Akron, and I don't think that changes this season. You compare the two quarterbacks, Ben Finley's over at Akron. I do like what Miami, Ohio has got here in DeQuan Finn a little bit more. And then you get a couple of the directional Michigan schools. You get Eastern Michigan and you get Western Michigan. But you get both of them at home. Eastern Michigan's going to be another interesting, I think, middle of the road team in the Mid-American Conference this year. Hey, they do get Noah Kim coming in at the quarterback position this year. He is transferring over from Coastal Carolinas, formerly of Michigan State, so does have the Power 4 experience there. Otherwise, you're looking at a very experienced bunch offensively with graduate students and seniors all over the place. Even defensively, it's going to be a pretty experienced, at least front. The secondary could be a little bit younger, but overall, while the experience I think does help and it's going to lead Eastern Michigan to win quite a bit of games this year, I think talent-wise, Miami still edges them out. And I also do like this head coach here in Chuck Martin a little bit more than I like Chris Creighton. In fact, a lot more than I like Chris Creighton. So that's going to be a win for me for Miami, Ohio. And I also do think they're going to beat their other directional Michigan school opponent in the Western Michigan Broncos. Hey, hats off to the Broncos for winning the hockey championship. And look, can still be a solid team this year. I think Jalen Buckley is one of the best running backs in the Mid-American Conference. I do like Brock Lowry at the quarterback position a lot, and they themselves got some really experienced transfer portal pieces in Talik Williams and Christian Leary, who are both proving to be graduate students. Some really good pieces coming in through the portal defensively as well. Hey, both of these directional Michigan schools up here, guys, watch out for them. They're going to be tough outs this year, but I do think they're both wins for Miami, Ohio. This is where you really dive on into the action slate. While there are a lot of tricky games at the beginning of the season, these are the ones that are really going to test Miami. You got to go on the road and play Ohio. Need I remind you of what this team did to you in the Mid-American Conference Championship game last year? And Ohio, even though they are now going to be adjusting to life without Tim Albin, they now have Brian Smith as the head coach. C.A. Bangura is coming back after trying the P4 experiment and it not working. I really like Parker Navarro at the quarterback position. He might be the best quarterback in the entire Mid-American Conference. Defensively, like him a lot. And by this point, they're in the Brian Smith system. They're developed. They know what it's going to be like. And I think any way you cut it, Ohio's going to be one of the best teams in the Mid-American Conference this upcoming season. I think Ohio wins that game, and the MAC Conference Championship result still holds up there on the road in Athens. However, I flashed my prediction on screen a little bit ago, so now I won't talk about this one too long. Toledo is losing some pretty good talent, but look, they still do have a lot of very, very nice pieces. I like Junior Vandeross at wide receiver. Again, I think Tucker Gleason up there with Parker Navarro and DeQuan Finn are some of the better quarterbacks we have in the conference. Defensively, some pretty good pieces, but man, it's action, and sometimes you're going to get some chaos. And overall, while I probably like Toledo actually quite a bit better than I like Miami this season, that's just me personally. Again, it's action, and sometimes these road games, these midweek games, are cause for a lot of chaos, and maybe some happens here in some people's minds. But again, Miami does usually fare pretty well at home as a program in conference play. I like them here against Toledo. I do not like them on the road against Buffalo, however. Yes, folks, watch out for the Bulls this year. The Buffalo Bulls are going to be a very interesting side after surprising in the MAC last year, going 8-4, 6-2 overall in conference. They do have Taquan Roberson transferring in at quarterback, which could very well be an upgrade after what they had last year. Good returning wide receiver pieces, and I do like Al-Jay Henderson as a senior running back. Also could be one of the better running backs in the Mid-American Conference. Defense loaded with returners. Watch out for the Bulls this year, man. You want a dark horse sneaky team out of the Mid-American Conference. Watch out for that team in Buffalo. And look, Caden Simons and a lot of other pieces are leaving Ball State. I think that's going to be a win for Miami, Ohio, any way you cut it, which means 7-5 is the record here. And look, I think they fare pretty well in conference play this year. Even though they're replacing a lot of talent, I think coaching, culture, foundation, that helps out a lot here. But there are a lot of tricky games. I'd watch out for the directional Michigan schools, even throw Central Michigan into that category. On the road at Northern Illinois is not going to be easy. Even on the road at Akron, I think can give you some trouble. You absolutely can lose to Toledo at home, and anything can happen in action this year. I just think Miami, Ohio, going to be one of the better ones, at least in conference play. Another pretty good year for Chuck Martin and company. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See all y'all in the next video. Goodbye.